Appreciate that. Zach, thanks for asking me to be here. And it's even though it's just a few of us friends. When you first approached me about doing this, I got really excited and a bit nervous, but mostly excited because I love jazz music, and I also feel like there's not enough conversation in at least our circles. I'm sure those conversations are happening elsewhere in the world, but in our circles in Minneapolis, I feel there's so much attention paid to the inner workings of this music, so much attention paid to jazz theory, harmony structures, understanding chord changes. More people are branching out from that, and I hear a lot of talk about, how you should listen to all these different styles of music, all these different types of tunes. You should try to memorize the tunes. You should try to develop your ear. I hear a lot of that conversation now, which is awesome. But what I never's not the right word. What I don't hear talked about high enough on the list of importance is the idea of melody. Melody being something that really should be the top, but rarely is relegated down the list of things we can pay attention to, especially in the early stages, which often we're only talking to people who are much younger than us about this music. So when you asked me to do this thing tonight, I was thinking, well, who knows who will come, but it would be awesome to just sort of discuss how important I think melody is. And I would say that it's important to understand how theory works and how chord structures work and how chord progressions work, specifically in regards to chord rhythms, how it actually feels in a chord progression for, let's say, a standard like I Got Rhythm, how the rhythmic timing works out. So, you've got this chord here that lasts for 2 counts. How does it feel when it goes to the next chord? Next chord, next chord, next chord. That is a very important thing for people to hear and understand. But then when you start improvising, you can't really use that. You really have to find your way to some sort of improvised melody. And so one of the things I try to do basic when I'm first starting with a musician, I have a student who's in her 60s, and I have a student who's 9 years old, and both are interested in jazz and improvising, and we start in the same place, which is basically we're going to play a very simple children's song, let's say Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and you're going to try to play this without any music, of course. That's an easy one. There's nothing you can look at. You have to hear your way through it. And usually, depending on who you say that to, there are a lot of musicians, especially in high school and college, you're like, oh yeah, no problem. And they start doing it. They realize, oh, actually, I have to think about this. And I think that's very telling, because if you have to think about that, which I did too, I was humbled in college. It was actually, I think it was Wynton Marsalis was the first person I'd ever heard sort of say that, to do that. And I was like, oh yeah, totally, I can do that. And I went back to the practice room and I was like, oh man, I totally can't do this. I have to sit here and figure it out on my saxophone, which is embarrassing. It's a children's song. It's such an easy melody. It wasn't like it was tremendously difficult. It took me a couple of minutes, and I was like, totally can do this now. Now I'll move it around, and we have 12 notes, and I will move it up and play that melody off of any note that I can think of on my instrument. And so the idea of melody kind of took hold over me, kind of third, fourth year of college, and I started to really gravitate towards the styles of music that's paid more attention to melody, even though it could have had super dense harmony, super dense chord changes. I loved people who would be lyrical. And the idea of lyricism appealed to me, not just because I'd heard lots of great singers, jazz singers, pop singers, folk singers, but because it was the thing that stuck with me the longest. And as a musician who I actually happen to love theory, I love teaching it and I love thinking about it. So I'm not belittling theory, but at the end of the day, you don't walk out of a room humming 2, 5, 3, 6, 2. You don't really do that unless you're working on memorizing a chord progression. You walk out humming a melody. And so the big hurdle for me came up when I was started to play around the Twin Cities, and I was a youngish musician, early 20s, mid 20s, and a lot of people were writing really obscure stuff, and I kept thinking, I was embarrassed. I didn't like it. I mean, it wasn't that I thought they were very talented musicians. I thought they were talented at writing music. But when I played the songs, I thought there would be these incredible people who'd come and record these shows. And I'm thinking of great places like the Clown Lounge and the Kitty Cat Club and even Barbette and some of the other places that really would regularly program jazz at least 1 or 2 nights a week. And you could really try things out. I was so thankful for those opportunities. Brilliant Corners, downtown St. Paul was huge. Jeremy Walker and Marcia Walker. Huge influences in terms of saying, this is important, let's have you doing it. And I would never speak ill of those opportunities, but I secretly felt like the music we were making sometimes wasn't as strong as I thought we should be putting forward. And I felt like, rather than just be kind of this young, grouchy, kind of cranky musician, which I knew a fair amount of those personality types, I thought, what is it that I'm missing, or what's lacking in my estimation? If I'm going to have this attitude, why? I sort of felt like I needed to take it apart. And so I was like, I don't like the melody. That's what it is. That's what's missing. I wanted melody. And I felt like people had concepts that they were putting on a page or teaching teaching it by rote or by ear, which was awesome. But then at the end of the day, I was never going to hum their song. And at the end of the night, I wasn't going to go home and put that record on unless I had to learn the song or something. It was really for educational purposes, which has its point. But I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we could go back to not to look backwards, but if we could go back to the level of popularity in the 40s, 50s, 60s that jazz had. I was like, why can't we have that anymore? What is missing? And I was like, you start digging through the articles and you read the interviews with people, even like Miles Davis, who had a ton of different takes on this overall, his career, but like Louis Armstrong and Dizzy Gillespie, even though these guys were very, very sophisticated musicians and knew music inside and out, backwards and forwards. At the end of the day, a lot of them would talk about the importance of melody, too. And so I started saying, people I really love and respect and admire are saying this. What's behind it? And I started listening to the music I know, but went after tunes that I thought had a really beautiful melody. And you find them. There are plenty of them out there. And I thought, I beat myself up so much trying to play like Charlie Parker, which is I think a feat anyone who wants to play jazz should really try to do, because it's such an amazing architecture of melody, really. A beautiful combination of melody and harmony. There are people that play as brilliantly as him, but he sort of started that game rolling, and everybody acknowledges that, so that's not news to anyone. But the idea was, what if I start to say I've paid tons of years of attention to harmony, and I think about harmony, and I don't necessarily toss the baby out with the bathwater, but I say I've tried hard to do chord progressions, let's play melody. So I started thinking lyricism, expressive voice, expressive. I'm aware of chord changes. I've practiced enough where I feel like they're sort of there. There are certain tunes and certain progressions that trip me up. I will certainly admit that. But the biggest thing I wanted to do was constantly seek lyricism in my playing. And I thought, if I could just make that a goal that I could have, I could move towards it. And it felt like it brightened my mood in playing. And I needed that. And I think Minneapolis, it needs that. And people are doing it more. I think it's a good time right now. There are a lot of great, these two cats right here are amazing examples. Miguel and Brian are totally great musicians, very knowledgeable, really awesome players, and I don't know you super well, but you seem content, right? So it's a good thing. But I think a lot of us were sort of like, and Minneapolis kind of beats it out of us too, because it's basically a hip hop and a folk singer-songwriter, not folk, singer-songwriter town. And there happens to be a brilliant, various classical music and jazz music. There are brilliant musicians here. But when you have music press, it's generally geared towards those two genres first, and then sometimes you have the Andrea Cantors and the Tom Surwitzes and a couple other writers who will actually publicize some things, that are happening in jazz. So I just thought, well, I'm not going to be like, woe is us as jazz players, but I was like, I certainly can't complain and ask for people to come and listen to us play when I don't love it, so I better figure out how to love what I'm doing. And so, again, keep coming back full circle to this word melody. That was the impetus for seeking that out. So how to do that as a musician over what tend to be dense and fast-moving chord progressions, it's a challenge. And the problem was, if we don't realize that we have to get our heads out of the game while still being really natural at the game itself, which I think any, it's not just music, it's athletics, or anyone in business, or anyone trying to really excel at what their given task is. Your goal is to learn the mechanics of it so well that you can kind of look from above, look down on the situation, and try to say, this is what this needs. And I felt like I would make myself go through on piano, learn the chords to these various songs that we were trying to play, and then when I improvised, I would almost just throw that all out the window, throw it away, and I would say, what would someone who's trying to just sing in the shower try to? It sounds cliche, but that was like, that's going to be my philosophy as an improviser. And then I have some tricks that I don't necessarily premeditate, but I have facility and technique on the saxophone that I can actually, other things end up making their way into my lyricism, and I think that that's something that I should explore further. But I felt like the highest level of intention as an improviser came when I was seeking melody, not fancy jazz ideas. I felt I can believe in that, but I have a hard time being like, wow, look at me, I've practiced getting myself from point A to point B over this 2-5-1 progression. And jazz songs are guilty. Some of the better ones are interesting and fun to listen to. Some of the worst ones are all concept. Here's this progression, and now I'm going to move it up a minor third, and then I'm going to come back, and then, oh wow, left turn, I went to the 4 chord here, and it just feels like, if we hear that, that's one thing, but I don't believe it. I feel like it's constructed out of analyzing music and then writing progressions that fit the analyzed thing we sought out. So to me, it was like, if I can't hear it, I don't feel it's right to play it. And so melody is the thing that I aspire to always try to play, and I'm guilty of falling into my jazz, not licks, but my jazz vocabulary, which tends to be centered around harmony. So, I was also thinking, who are some examples that might come up for us as melody players, and there are tons of them. A lot of my peers, I feel, are great melody players, but some of the groups that have really garnered a lot of attention have been groups that, like, Dave King is in. Dave King Trucking Company, I think, is a really melodic, lyrical group.
His trio more so.
Yeah, his trio more so, for sure. And the Bad Plus, I think, they're super, super dense and really, I think, really complicated. When you sit down at a piano and you're trying to figure out what the heck is going on, it's like, oh my God, they're all over the place. I can't even begin to describe the meter. It's just, I'm not even that sophisticated. I can't do it. But at the end of the day, I think they're so popular because there's just like melody coming at you at the speed of a freight train. It's just like melody, but supported with all the riches of the jazz canon. It's like, this is great. It's overwhelming to some people. My wife has a hard time with the Bad Plus. I was like, which breaks my heart. I'm like, they're so good. But she's like, they're so busy. It sounds like chaos. And I'm like, well, to each is all right. It's not for everybody.
I think they're less chaotic than they were 10 years ago.
That's true.
Maybe she should come here again.
I agree.
There you go.
Done. Now next time I'm gonna say that. I'm gonna say that. I like it. I think you're right, Andrea. I think you're right. They are mellowing. They're mellowing, I think, too. Yeah. But the idea was that the conventions of writing jazz music are utilized, but they're not the focus. And I think that that's why people are up for listening to it. And I think that the big problem would be to sort of leave jazz or feel critical of jazz, and many of us that play it, without trying hard to bring a different approach that that we like to it. It's like it felt to me like, God, I love this stuff, and I fell in love with this music when I was 14, 15 years old, and like, why now in my late 30s, like, why, sometimes I feel like, what's the point of it? We're just chasing this thing that I'm not sure who cares, and but it's like, it's still beautiful, so it's like, well, we should still chase that. If it's still beautiful, there's some value in doing it. And so I guess the thing, to kind of sum up this, not to bore you guys with all the verbosity here, but it's like, I think the end of the day is there's a great Thad, I think it's a Thad Jones record, if I'm not mistaken, but the title of it is "Mean What You Say." And I thought, God, it's a great way of just summing up exactly what I'm, what I would love to be as an improviser. Certainly playing an instrument. I meet all kinds of non-musicians and I tell them I play saxophone, and I'm always kind of hold my breath after I say it, because I'm like, this means so many different things to so many people. Generally, if I've found that pretty consistently, if they're doing something that they make a lot of money, but they don't necessarily love doing, I find that there's sort of a curiosity, like, really, people still do that,
You should make a living?
You can make a living. Well, and then I find there's that. You can actually, really, you don't make, what do you do, really?
Good luck with that.
Yeah,
I hear that one a lot.
Yeah, every musician gets that. And I see that. I think if you're looking at it from that, like, if you're a professional in IT or something, or you're a lawyer or a doctor or something, it's like, looking at a musician, how do you even begin to make money? But it's like you have to look at it from a different perspective. You can't look at it from the same. It's like it's just too different. They're too disjunct. But I'm on a tangent. But the idea is that I feel like if you love what you're doing, even though there aren't always these great days, there's still a lot of value in bringing that. And even though there may not be, like, for instance, right now there are a lot of empty chairs, it's like that might be the case, but the idea is I still love this the same, whether that this room would be full or if there's just 4 of us or 6 of us or whatever it is, and that's how I've tried to maintain my focus as a performing musician, is that, the only thing I can control is how much I care about it. And so melody matters most, because that to me is the thing that feels the most honest. And I think that I tend to water down harmony. I simplify, and I try to think simpler all the time in music. I tend to write music that sort of is a little simpler than a lot of my contemporaries. And I used to feel a little embarrassed about it, but now I'm sort of like, who cares? I'm going to die at some point, so it's like, why worry about that? It's like, right? It's like, we have more problems to worry about than whether we're writing something that's too simple. So I'm getting better at not worrying about that. And as long as the musicians I get to play with are interested in playing that music, then I'll try to keep coming up with some stuff. But I thought maybe should we do a little demo, and then we can kind of, maybe we could, we talked about taking that Strange Meeting at tune. So I'm going to lean on these guys, Miguel, Brian, and Zach. This happens to be, Bill Frisell's a great example of it. I didn't list him. He is another huge inspiration for many of us, because it's like, as a guitarist, Zach, it's like, he's got such a deep knowledge and deep...
Well, and he really embodies the thing that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And guitar is a great example, because there's a lot of conceptual, just like rapid note blowing.
Yep.
I'm often guilty of it.
We all
but Giselle is somebody who, I can listen to and really remember that, it doesn't have to be like that.
Something that, along those lines, something that has been occurring to me a great deal in the last 5 years, and I am going to just be honest, I don't know if somebody said it to me and I'm totally plagiarizing. Probably. But at some point it occurred to me that, I think it was like 2003 or 2004, and I was like, maybe I was just, it was post-college, and I was just like, God, life was frantic. There was just a lot to do in life. And I thought, it seems like the 21st century that's just starting, it just feels like everybody's got more. I mean, like the internet was really just really getting more. Like in college, like the internet was like something a few people I knew used.
Yeah.
And then like I didn't get I was like the cell phone thing. I was like, you know,
I didn't even have a computer.
I mean, I didn't even have my own computer for a while. A cell phone, I didn't have that until I was like 26. I was like, I'm really gonna wait. I don't want it. I just felt like, well, you know, I had a friend who was an electrical engineer, and he was like, you would not believe the electromagnetic currents that come to those phones. And I was like, gosh, that doesn't seem good. I don't want that located on my body. It's like, I don't think I need that. And I don't know. It just was easy enough. And then now we're all with cell phones. I don't have any, I mean, who has a landline? Unless you have had it, you use it because you've had it, but none of us do. Anyway, the point is, we're all busier. Life feels more fast-paced. It certainly is faster. I was looking at an email 5 minutes before we were doing this thing. I was like, think about that. If you didn't have a smartphone, you wouldn't be checking your email right now. You're out and about in the world, but it's just we're busy. And so 2003, 2004, I'm thinking about this, and I was thinking we have this really busy, frantic, dense, highly active, almost, you know, ADD music called jazz that is super frantic and busy, that just is like, I saw more and more people who weren't musicians walking away from it, because it was like, I'm frantic all day. I've been asked to do 25 things in the last 6 hours, and the last thing I want is more of this tossed in my face, or my ears for this subject. So it occurred to me, I was like, we live in a busier time, and to offer people busier sound, I just felt like, God, why? Why do that? Some people want it. Some people are like, God, that's so boring if it's too lush. But I was just craving minimalism and simplicity and space, and then dear friends were laying all this great electronic music on me, Bill Frisell's records, Bjork's records, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. Even though some of Bjork's music can be pretty rhythmically dense and a lot of sound, there was something in the way she constructed her songs and her melodies that had intervallic space, and just all of the mechanics of the music the terms were different. It just wasn't as frantic. And I was like, we're missing that in jazz. We are missing that. And so that's something I thought, we don't have to scrap jazz vocabulary and all the beauty that comes before us, but why not try to bring that to the way we play?
Before we play this, can I ask?
Yeah.
What are some ways that you work on moving toward this place of intent, you know, to have maybe less harmonic density, more simplicity?
That's a really good question, and I will admit that I feel like I have a long way to go on that.
Sure.
My goal is to never sound lost or like I don't know where I'm at.
Sure.
The problem with jazz tunes is that they move. So I'm on like right here, for this long I'm in this key, and now I'm in this key, and now I'm in a different key. So if I don't understand keys, I'm dead. The whole idea of playing a melody over most jazz songs, if you don't understand keys, trouble. So I try to make sure I understand keys really well and understand motion. So not like practicing, or for a while I was practicing arpeggiations of chords because I'm a saxophone player. You would probably chord actually, right? So there was that level, and then it's like the chord isn't going to give me the melody. I can use notes out of it that'll get me to the melody, but then I was thinking, you know, connecting the dot from here to here had to come from sort of that leap of blind faith that I knew the keys well enough that I could just trying to come up with your own song. I have a almost 8-month-old baby now, and it's occurring to me that I'm unbelievably bad at lyrics. I'm like singing "The Wheels on the Bus Go Round and Round." I'm like, God, I have no idea what's next. The driver of the bus goes, move on back. That's what it is. Yeah. And then I'm like, wait, now that verse is over. What's next? So I like have to think all the time. Like I just make stuff up. And so I think how I get to the melody thing as an improviser over these jazz tunes is understand my keys best I can in the sequencing that they come up, and then like I'm having to sing that children's song, making the words up sort of just keep things going. Just try to take a stab at a blind stab in the dark, kind of, and just sort of see if I can make something that sounds melodic.
Cool.
So if I know the keys are doing what they're doing, it's not going to hopefully be too jarring or out, but I'm not throwing ideas that I've kind of preconceived at the chord changes themselves. I have to actually take a chance, and I think the biggest thing is we have to not be afraid of sounding bad. Because I think oftentimes when you ask somebody to do this and you pull their constructions out from underneath them, take away their security blanket, it's sort of like, and I think that's kind of cool at that moment. That's where actually something spontaneous could potentially happen.
Yeah.
And again, all we have to do as musicians is we have to understand the songs, and we have to understand the keys, and then we let go.
Yeah.
I think that's our way to find the melody, personally.
Yeah.
So we'll state this melody. We'll just start right on it, if that sounds okay. And the melody itself is basically whole notes. So it's about the definition of space. And there's a little sizzle underneath it. And then when you play, he's got chord changes. I mean, it's go for za, so he's not gonna not write chord changes. But the idea is you can actually play with time because of all the space, and you can fill it with denser, busier rhythmic ideas, or you can be rhythmic or you can be spacious. It affords all of it. A jazz standard that's in just up tempo swung sort of means you're going to be playing 8 notes. You're going to have to do that. So that's its own thing. So I like this kind of music because it allows us to kind of everything I'm talking about. We can actually employ it. We can really try to. So let's try it. We got a little bit. Well, we'll just go up. Cool. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So yeah, I think you know, that was fun. That was really fun. I that's not everybody's cup of tea, but I think it's I love the fact that it's kind of got room for all of the emotions, but it's not cramming them down your throat. There's you can breathe in that style, and I love that. I love dance music too, and I love fast standards. I love that, but you can't have all of that. It's like eating only pizza or something. It's like you're eventually not going to be doing too well. You know? You gotta have something that's a little more of the earth. You know, a little more space involved. And so I kind of view melody as the thing that allows us to kind of move towards it. If you just focus on that melody, it'll come. You guys, the way you soloed on that is a very good example of just following. I think repetition is another thing. Just you saying something and using that to your advantage. Like, oh, that was an accident that I just played that, but I'm going to keep playing it because now I like the way that it sounds, and it doesn't quite work on this chord, but because I can go to this note now because I'm listening as a melody player, you can make that work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something I feel like I could do more of, personally. So there's always, you're never done, as everybody will say, like always something more to work on and learn. But yeah, I don't know if that sheds light.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Chris Thomson.
Thanks guys for listening. Thank